In the first part of this video, we left off by making the lamppost a group. And I just wanted to remind you, make sure that you have already created a tag for that, exterior lights, and then when you make it a group, you can come up to Entity Info and place it in the correct tag. Now, I've already have one, so I'm not going to do that again. So the other thing I noticed is that when we were moving around and selecting things, something got left behind in midair, and this little geometric object here is actually the light source that all light fixtures have in the Podium browser. So we're not going to render this, so I'm going to just delete that. So I can just select it, edit that, and select that, and edit that, and keep on picking on that little piece there until I can select it, and that's the only thing that's selected. And since it's a component, then all of the other ones are selected, and I can just hit the delete button. Okay. The other thing I noticed when I was orbiting is that I have a different texture over here. Now, even though we're never looking this way, I like to keep things cleaned up, as I say. So what I'm going to do is I want to change that to this texture by quickly coming over here to my Materials tab here, go to the Select button, pick the eyedropper, pick on this texture, and then with your Select button, edit this group until you can get to that surface, and then paint it with that same texture. Now it goes all along here, so I'm going to quickly just clean this up. And I noticed also over here on this side, just one pick will create that. Now if you notice underneath here, it all has that same texture, and I really don't care because we're never looking over here. And so all our views are on top of here. So I'm going to go to my Select, pick out here, and I think we're good to go and continue. So now with the trees, I'm going to show you a different source for components, and that source is built in within SketchUp, and it's called the 3D Warehouse. Now with Podium, that's something that you have to buy if you are purchasing this on your own, but we have this again in the AP284 desktop if you're using MySCC. If you are using a purchased program of SketchUp and you didn't purchase this, that's okay. You can use the 3D Warehouse. So over here, this little icon here, if I pick that, it's going to bring me to the 3D Warehouse. And in this, you can pick on this categories here, but what I usually do is just type in here, and I typed in trees and pick the search button there, and we have all sorts of trees in here. And I'm going to scroll down here and look a little bit here. Again, there are some 3D trees and 2D trees, and I'm going to see if I can find, I think this one here might work. It's kind of airy. It doesn't look to be as dense as some of these other ones. If you use some of these other ones, they'll come in very black because there's a lot of geometry going on, and these don't have as much. So I'm going to try this one. In the 3D Warehouse, it's similar. Just pick the download button, and you want to say yes. Downloading, and give yourself a little patience. Okay, so there it is, and that'll work. So I'm going to come over here again to where my site plan says the trees should be planted, and I'm just going to pick there. Again, I want to check. I'm just going to orbit underneath, and you see I don't see that little surface there, or circle rather, like I did over here with the light post. So if I orbit and get a little closer to this, I'm seeing that, you know, it looks like it barely touched there. But the way this is created, you really have to embed this into the surface a little bit. So you never know how these are created. So in this case, you see it's barely touching, and that doesn't look right. So it's already selected. You're in the move command, so you can pick it anywhere. And if you want to tap your up arrow, you can just move it down a little bit, as long as it's kind of embedded and it's covered on the perimeter of that trunk. So that'll work. So I'm going to back out of my view a little bit, and that's a pretty good tree, nice and airy, doesn't have a lot of, the way it was created, you don't see the geometry of it. So if you select it, if you get real close, they're not really realistic leaves, they're just geometric patterns. From afar it looks okay, and that's fine for right now. It looks good, and it's actually a pretty good size. So what I'm going to do is to take that tree again and copy it just like I did the other ones. So I can just pick anywhere really. I'm going to pick the front of this here, tap the control key, pick it here. Again, if you have a lot of trees, if you have a whole forest, then you might do something different. I'm getting a little close to it, so I can maybe make sure that I'm, you know, on the red axis, and pick that point right there in each of these little areas here. So if I back out of my view and deselect everything, then I have a group of trees here. I haven't grouped them yet, because what I want to do with these, I want to make them look different. Unlike the lampposts, when you buy a lamppost like this, and you know, typically you're going to have the same lampposts all along the street. But as everyone knows, trees do not grow exactly alike. And if you can see, they all have the same branch structure. So in these, what you can do is to scale them, but instead of using the corner grips like we did with this, what you can do is manipulate it with these other grips. So randomly, I'm just going to kind of make this one a little taller. Now, if it does this, you know, it's kind of jumping around with your movement here. Again, you can go to the lower right-hand corner and just type in, if you want to make it 1.5 times bigger, just put 1.5, enter, okay? And if you want to make it a little wider, just pick one of these side grips, okay? Now you're going to reposition it here later, so don't worry about that. Now, I think it's a little too big, so I'm going to scale it down proportionally from what I had it, just like that, okay? So go down the line and make these kind of a little bit different. They don't all have to be so extremely different, but I would like for you to just get in the practice of using these grips, making this maybe a little wider like that. And you can try experimenting with some of these other grips. Okay. Now, again, if it's way off the mark here, just go to the move command and move it back on site there. And again, I like to check. See, it doesn't go through, so I have to embed it a little bit. So I'm going to move it down a little bit inside. Now, it really doesn't matter too much if you want to, you know, just barely enough to cover everything like that. And again, you have to back out of your view, okay? So now you can see a big difference between this one and this one. And it looks pretty tall here, so I'm going to make this one just a little bit taller. Not so much the same, but just a little bit. It's has a different shape enough to be different. like that. So this one here, I may just leave alone, come over here, and you know what I'm going to do with this one? I'm going to rotate it. So I'm going to select that, go to rotate, tap my up arrow, and just place it anywhere over here. And the second point, you know, stay on the red axis here. And when you twist it around a little bit, maybe you might want to do 90 degrees, 45, whatever. And then again with the move command, move it back on its place like that. I always like to check it. Okay, looks good underneath there. Little off there, so I'm just going to move it right there. Okay, now what you have to do, excuse me, what you have to do is constantly back out of your view, look at it. So this looks considerably smaller. So let's just scale that up a little bit, proportionally, like that, maybe a little taller like that. Okay, that's good. You don't have to spend so much time with this, but I'm just showing you different little techniques and tricks that you can do with landscaping, especially with trees. Okay, so let's see, I'm going to look at this. This one here, maybe I'll just, oh, I don't know, let's just try this grip here. Okay, and just move it around a little bit like that, back out of my view. Okay, it looks different. And then maybe this one here, just slightly make it a little wider this way, and maybe like that, pull it up just a little bit, and I'm going to rotate it as well. So rotate, up arrow, kind of pick anywhere like this, and this time it's just a slight angle like that, and move it back onto my site right there. Move it down a little bit, embed it, and that should be good. Okay, so again, you should have an isometric view. So when you pick that, now if I pick that, my other trees are going to come back, so I'm not going to pick it right now. But the view that you want is to look down the street similar to this. Okay, and you want to position it so you can see the street, the sidewalk, and all four homes. You don't necessarily have to see all of the tree here on this left side. Oop, went out a little whack here, so I'm going to select it and move it back here. Move it down, and there. Okay, I'm going to kind of check my other trees. They all look good. I'm going to go back to setting up my view. Now, eventually, we'll place a background here, but you want a view similar to this, where you can see all four homes. And you can change this, okay? Now, once you're in this view here, you can kind of see how the trees look. So you can see that this one's a little short, and these three in this view look about the same size. So I'm going to take this one here and scale that up just slightly so it's a little different, because it all depends on your view, okay? And so that looks good. I like this a little wider, and I can leave it like that. That's fine. Okay. So once you do that, and after you make your tab, you can right click and update it. Okay. So after that, don't forget to come over here and you can collapse some of these and go to your tags and turn off your site plan. And you're ready for the next step.